we started bringing women together for these types of speaker events, as well as retreats, almost 5.5 years ago now. We adore our community, so thanks for being here. And we're honored to have Janey Lee Grace join us this morning. I've been referencing her book, Happy, Healthy, Sober, a lot this month, since a group of around, 55 of us revelers are doing Sober October together. And Janey is a leading advocate, educator, and coach's coach for alcohol-free living. Welcome, Janey.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's lovely to be with you. And well done, you guys who are a few days into Sober October, 11 days. Yeah, well done. Yeah. Brilliant.
And for those who have not joined us for Sober October, you can always join us and just send me an email if you're interested in joining us halfway through. It's never too late. So Janey, where do you want to get started? I know that I have really loved the shift in narrative around alcohol from kind of that idea of having to give up alcohol to choosing to have an alcohol-free life. And I particularly love the way that you emphasize the positivity around it. Do you mind talking about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think that certainly here in the UK, we tend to have this belief that there are two types of drinkers. There are those who are at absolutely rock bottom and need alcohol services, rehabilitation, they're clinically dependent. And then the perception is that there's everyone else and they're perfectly okay. They're social drinkers and everything's really good. Just every now and then they can't hold their beer and they don't feel so good. But it's not the reality. The reality is there are millions of people who are not at rock bottom, but they're not okay either. They are drinking more than they want to. They are waking up at 3 a.m. as I used to, absolutely hating themselves, berating themselves for yet again drinking too much. They're not living their best lives because they're pouring in booze every day. And the term that we now know is assigned to that very large spectrum of people is grey area drinkers. So it's not black and white, it's a spectrum. And really the truth of it is we don't have to wait till we get right to rock bottom before we step off the booze elevator. Why wait till everything's terrible and we've got sick? Why do that when we can catch sight of the fact that life without booze is so much better? If only someone had told me that. My only regret is that I didn't do this sooner. And if only someone had said, stop this battle of trying to stop for a bit, trying to reduce, just stop that and recognize how amazing it is to live alcohol free.
And how about the all or nothing attitude? Like here we're doing Sober October and I'm really doing it. My initial idea was truly just as a cleanse before the holidays. And I still really like that idea. And now I'm starting to see the benefits of living an alcohol-free life. And I'm toying with the idea of maybe I don't want to go back.
Yeah.
Talk about that. Like, is there a benefit to taking just a short time off of alcohol?
Well, I mean, you are typically sober curious then, that lovely phrase, you're sort of exploring what life might be like without the booze. In terms of taking a break, of course, it's always good to take a break. Obviously. But I kind of have I'm a little bit in two minds when it comes to these Sober October and Dry January and all of that. Of course, I love the fact that it shines the spotlight and it helps makes it much easier for people because of course their friends and colleagues are also maybe going through it, so that you don't have so much social pressure. So on the one hand, I think it's really good. But on the other hand, if people don't use that time to focus on what they're gaining, then it really is not going to give you that much benefit at all. Because if you simply spend the whole month kind of gritting your teeth, counting the days till you can drink again, then it really won't have given you very much benefit. And the actual truth is you see way more benefits beyond 30 days. 30 days isn't actually long enough, particularly if, like me, if you were drinking for years and years and years, it just isn't enough time to be able to reset everything. Yes, there's always a benefit for for stopping, for reducing? Of course there is. But of course, I would like to encourage everyone to set themselves a longer challenge. Do 100 days, do 200 days, take yourself past Christmas, and then you'll really get to see kind of who you really are.
Maybe you could help us with some ideas or techniques for shifting that kind of negative, like gritting your teeth and bearing it.
Yeah.
And how do you change that attitude?
Yeah, I think, this kind of comes back to the fact that with any kind of behavior change, that we want to make, we need to know why, don't we? We need to know why we want to do this. And that means we need to be really clear about the logic piece around alcohol. So, let's not sugarcoat it. Let's just be really honest. It's a toxin. It's the number one most harmful drug. It really is, by the way, when you take into account everything, the harm to the economy, the relationships, the health service. It's the number one most harmful drug. It is linked to 200 different illnesses, God knows how many types of cancer. It's terrible for women. Anyone who's heading towards perimenopause or menopause, it does not mix well with alcohol. It's linked to mental poor mental health. I mean, I could go on and on and on and on. So the bottom line is alcohol has zero benefits. Do not believe the hype that a glass of red wine is good for the heart. No, it really isn't. Have some resveratrol or some grapes or something if you want to boost your antioxidant level, but it really isn't good for the heart. That's a marketing ploy that we've been sold. So number one, you've got the logic piece. It's very important to understand. So I really do highly recommend that everyone gets clarity on that. I was completely in denial, completely. I used to love all the articles that said a glass of red wine is good for you, and then I went and had a bottle of white, go figure. But that's important. So get the logic, that's important. However, emotions, not logic, inspire action. So once you've got the logic, you then need to think, okay, could my life be better physically and emotionally without the booze? And that's where you need to really start to vision what life might be like. So focusing entirely on what you're gaining. So if you can catch sight of a better life, perhaps you can visualize yourself looking, I don't know, brighter, with more energy. Perhaps you can visualize waking up having had a proper restorative night's sleep. Perhaps you can visualize yourself with more clarity of thought, with, talking sense rather than talking nonsense on a night out. Perhaps you can visualize yourself in optimum health for you, both physically and emotionally. If you can start to vision those things, you can start to gather the motivation. And when you've got the motivation, that's when you can start to put the changes in place. But if you're simply focusing on, oh, I must do this because my body needs a month off, those changes are not going to happen very easily for you. It's going to be a battle.
Mm-hmm. And how about, speaking of battles, I think probably a lot of us are thinking this right now, like, I adore having a cocktail at 5 o'clock because it kind of symbolizes a shift from work day to leisure to getting together with friends. Whatever with the addiction side of it, that is a really beautiful ritual in a lot of our minds.
Yeah,
so
completely.
Let's talk about that. Like, how do you shift that?
Yeah, so you're right. We, as adults, we seek pleasure. We like to have a nice glass, a nice drink. We like social. We like to be social. We like to mark that difference between work and leisure. We like to feel as though we have a reward. All of those things are absolutely, completely true and absolutely the way it is. But you don't have to have poison. Right. So my phrase that I'm sure you've noticed is keep the ritual, change the ingredients. So absolutely finish work and have a really lovely drink in a really lovely glass and really enjoy it. But why would you need to make it alcohol? There are so many incredible alcohol-free drinks. You can have a beautiful cocktail without alcohol. There are so many recipes. They're just incredible. I defy anyone not to be able to find a great alcohol-free drink. Now, I know that it's one of the very few things that the UK are ahead of the States on. We really do have an incredible range, but I think you're catching up, right? So I just defy you not to be able to find a fantastic drink or many more drinks that you absolutely love. have them in a beautiful glass, have some snacks with it, do whatever it takes, and keep that ritual, but change the ingredients, don't have the poison.
That has been a huge help to me since I stopped drinking a couple of weeks ago. It's, it's like I'm really trying to maintain a ritual. And so doing it in a nice glass, just like you said, really makes a difference. And I would love for particularly the participants in our Sober October group, maybe in the chat area, you could list some of your favorite alcohol-free drinks. And something that I am so aware of is, and I think you mentioned it in your book, the word sober also implies boring. How do you on that?
Well, yeah, sober, anagram of bores. I mean, it's actually nonsense, because the reality is, and we'll all be able to remember back to occasions where we've, for whatever reason, been sober, maybe pregnant, or just happened to not be drinking for whatever reason, and we've been around people who are drunk. Oh my goodness, I'm sorry, but drunk people are really boring. They tell you the same stuff over and over. It's embarrassing. It's just, it really is not sober people who are boring. In fact, the opposite is true. When you really have kind of found your sober shoes, if you like, when you've kind of stepped into your new identity, you can be the fun person that you really are, because you don't need all that pretending. You don't need all that nonsense. And I just don't buy that at all. That really needs to be knocked on the head, because the reality is we can have so much more fun when we're fully present.
I completely agree. And something that I'm finding that I'm really loving is alcohol makes me tired,
Of course it does. Yeah.
Especially
and yet the funny thing there is, of course, we all buy into the idea that it both energizes us if we're feeling low, and it relaxes us if we're feeling tired, and it allegedly makes us feel sexy and confident. I mean, it's all nonsense. The emperor is not wearing any clothes. It doesn't do any of those things.
Yeah, I also feel better. I don't know if this is a known, just a phenomenon that as you get older, it seems like alcohol is starting to bother my stomach more.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. Yes, it's unbelievably bad for our gut health, because it inflames everything. I mean, there really isn't anything that alcohol, I mean, it has zero benefits, and there is nothing that this is a complete double negative statement, but basically when you stop drinking, nothing gets worse. Okay. It may be that you have some kind of health condition that for whatever reason won't improve, for whatever reason, but all things being equal, when you quit with the booze, pretty much everything improves. It's literally incredible. Alcohol's so bad for everything, name it, it's really bad for it. Seriously, digestive health, it's terrible, because your body is trying to process it. It's a toxin. It's trying to process it, it's trying to deal with it. And it does really well. I mean, we're very fortunate. Most of us are very strong. We can put up with a whole load of nonsense for a long time. But look at the pressure you're putting on your body, the pressure you're putting on your liver and your whole detoxification system. For what? For what gain? So you can feel really tired and miserable and numb. I mean, it's when you look back at it, it's bizarre. I kind of look back and I think, my God, why did I do that for so many years? And you know how, if you've ever had, I'm sure everyone here has had some kind of food that they're intolerant to and it makes them ill, right? You never have that food again, right? Never. I mean, you look out for it on a menu, you go to someone's house, oh my God, no, I'm not going to touch that, it makes me ill. And yet with alcohol, we make ourselves really ill. We make ourselves feel sluggish and hungover and sick and tired and lacking in energy and depressed. And then we do it all again the next day. Kind of weird, right?
Yeah. It is kind of strange when you think about it that way. I never crave broccoli because it makes me feel so bad. Okay, before I really want to get into like tips around shifting to an alcohol-free lifestyle. But I want to explore moderation with you. And if you think it's possible to drink in moderation, like, I'm thinking, okay, I really want to do dry January. not sure about going through November and December during the holidays, and I'm going to a wedding and I'd love to drink champagne. Let's talk about moderation.
Okay. There's a few things there to just back up for a moment that I would say, again, you need to look at the why, really. You need to look at well, I suppose my question for you would be to ask yourself, could my life be better physically and emotionally without alcohol? That's the real question. And if a little voice in your head says yes, then you might want to then say, so hold on a minute, why do I really want to drink champagne at a wedding or whatever it was you mentioned? Why would I want to do that? And I'm guessing that the truthful answer would be because my perception is that will make me feel good if I'm socializing or if I'm with other people, or because I want to fit in, or whatever bunch of reasons. So then we start to realize that it's not actually about the alcohol. It's about the associations with the alcohol, right? To come back to your question, can people moderate? In the UK, we have this term mindful drinkers, okay? People who drink moderately, they're mindful about what they drink and when they drink. Well, here's my take on it, right? I am a mindful kiwi fruit eater, okay? And what I mean by that is I don't buy them very often, don't even really see them. But last week, my son happened to bring home a pack of kiwi fruits and I had one. And then I just so happened to go somewhere a couple of days later and there was a fruit salad and it had some kiwi fruit in it. And then literally 6 months, maybe 9 months will go by and I won't even see or think about a kiwi fruit. And then at Christmas, I might end up having 3 in a day, right? In other words, it's not a thing for me. I don't care. If the doctor said to me, you can absolutely never eat a kiwi fruit again, otherwise you'll die. Okay, I'm good. I don't care. I'm certainly not going to join a group or read a book or watch a podcast on mindful kiwi fruit eating, right? Because it's not a thing for me. I don't care. And if you're that kind of person, if it's not a thing for you, if you genuinely have an off switch, if you can have a glass of wine and then 3 months might go by and then somebody might offer you half a glass, great. If you're that kind of person, and there are some people like that, they genuinely have an off switch. It's not a thing for them. It's not an issue in their life, doesn't feature. Those people can moderate and be mindful drinkers.
And that's like your husband, right?
Yeah, that's exactly how he used to be. He now doesn't bother at all because he tried some alcohol-free gin and thought, well, this is lovely. Why would I ever have alcohol? So he never touched it. But that's how he used to be. But the reality is, most of us, if we're even having this conversation, the reality is we probably don't have an off switch. We probably are grey area drinkers. So we're somewhere on that spectrum, okay? And that's when it gets tricky. Having said all of that, if you have decided you want to moderate, I'll give you a few tips that I would really recommend you put in place. Number one, do a minimum of 30 days first. 30 days alcohol-free first. Because, I mean, if you're going to be able to moderate, it shouldn't be a problem for you, right? You can do 30 days. It's not a big problem. So do 30 days and focus only on how much better you feel. And then at the end of those 30 days, if you've really determined to do moderation, set your boundaries. So you choose whatever that is. So maybe you'll drink on, I don't know, Wednesdays or Saturdays or whatever your rules are. Put your rules in place and make sure you know exactly what they are and you're committed. And then add one more rule, okay? It's a really important one. Commit to never drinking alcohol if you are angry, upset, or fearful, even if it's a designated drinking day, okay? Because if you do, you're reinforcing that association with your unconscious mind that you need alcohol to get past something. And if you really feel like you want to go for it, add another rule that you'll never drink when you celebrate either. Knocks out quite a lot of occasions. Feeling either anxious or celebrating, right? But that's how you'd actually be a mindful drinker if the associations weren't strong, because that way you don't get to, upset the unconscious mind and end up going back down the slippery slope.
And Janey, help me understand what you do if you do slip. Like, I've been getting a lot of emails from our participants like confessing, hey, I
relapsed.
had some drinks last night because it was a really stressful day.
Yeah.
What would you say to them?
Just get back on the horse. That stuff happens. It's okay. It's okay. It's, none of us are perfect. It's okay. Don't beat yourself up. Be really kind to yourself. Do notice it though. Do notice it. Preferably go and make some notes about what led to it. Because no one really trips over the drink in the hallway. There's always a lead up to it. When you pause and you think back, actually, now I think about it, I didn't eat properly that day. I was really tired. I let that person really upset me. I know I should have gone and done some kind of self-care, but I didn't. I missed my walk or my yoga class or whatever. I didn't eat properly. I'd only had a snack bar the whole goddamn day. And actually now I think about it, I can see the process that led me to that moment. Because if you really notice your thoughts and you notice the thought process, you're able to challenge your own thoughts. You have to become your own guru, really. And that lovely expression, you take your thoughts to the courtroom. So, well, okay, let's lay this out. Okay, I needed a drink in that moment. Really? Is that actually true? Did you need toxic liquid in that moment? Or was it really that what you needed was to have a nap or connect with someone who cares about you, or go and have a bath with essential oils? Is that actually what you needed?
Or take a walk?
Exactly.
And I do think that that's a really powerful reminder that just being conscious of what's driving it, like I think 90% of my experience is habit.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
But also just to reflect, never to associate with anger or stress. And
or being afraid. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. It really is. It really is about noticing our thoughts. It's also really important to do the prep and the groundwork. And, in my book, I talk a lot about the fact that in the early days and the first sort of 4 weeks, when you stop drinking, your brain chemistry is going to be all over the place. And if you sort of think of it as if, you're inside your own body, it's like, what the hell is going on? Where's my dopamine hit? Where's my GABA? Where's my serotonin? Why aren't I getting all my happy chemicals? And I mean, it's everything is chaotic. And in order to support that, we've really got to make sure that we do the real basics and we put really good nutrition in place and we sleep when we need to. And that might be erratic. We might sleep a lot more than normal, or we might find we can't sleep at all. It can be odd, but we do need to be able to take a bit more care of ourselves and put ourselves first. It's very important. It's the most important thing you'll ever do for your own health and well-being. It really is. It's not another well-being trend. It really isn't. It's not doing a boot camp or juicing for a month, or all of those things. Fantastic, but this has so many more layers to it. It's literally the most important thing you'll ever do for your health and well-being.
Thank you. I think that it can be really challenging when you first stop drinking, like what I've been experiencing, particularly the first week, that you don't feel great. I mean, at least I don't. No. And so it's a little bit frustrating to stick with it, because I think there is this misunderstanding that it's like, as soon as you stop drinking, you're going to feel great. You're going to sleep great. You're going to, like everything's hunky dory besides the craving. But I don't think that's necessarily true. So just want to remind everyone, stick.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it would be, it's not very likely, is it? If you've been drinking for years. I mean, when we look at kind of alternative health kind of stuff, we often say you need a month of treatment, in inverted commas, or recovery for every month that you had the problem. Oh my God, maybe it's not quite that long, but it really does not happen instantly. And as I say, because of the brain chemistry, the alcohol has got to completely leave your system for starters. And then you've got to recognize that all of this stuff needs to recalibrate. So we have to practice what, I call extreme self-care in those early weeks. We really do. We can't just carry on our life and expect to instantly feel 100% better within a couple of days. It takes longer than that. We have to be willing to push through the hard bit. It's worth it when you focus on what you're gaining. It's really worth it.
Before we start talking about like cravings, like sugar cravings and stuff like that, I want to touch on like the relationships and social scene aspect of it. Like, I know for me, my husband is participating with me in this, and I'm so grateful. And he's actually even on this call. Thank you so much. But like, if your partner is not signing up with you,
Yeah.
do you have any words of wisdom?
Yeah. I mean, this is, when I coach women, one of the first questions I usually ask them is if they have a partner, where is their partner at with all of this? Because there's no doubt about it, what your partner does or doesn't do will definitely have an impact on you. So we do have to take this into consideration. And I think one of the best things that I can recommend is that you focus entirely on yourself, as you would if this were a women's health issue, let's say. So let's say you were, I don't know, perimenopausal, and you went to see a practitioner and they recommended that you had, 4 weeks of a special diet. Maybe you're, I don't know, going to go vegan or gluten-free, and you're going to add some supplements in, and you've got some kind of exercise you have to do, or whatever it might be. It's a program that you've committed to for your health. And it also includes not drinking, right? In that instance, you would go back to said partner and say to them, I'm doing this thing for my health. I'm doing this women's program. I've signed up to this thing. It's 4 weeks and I'm going to be doing that. So I'm not going to be drinking alcohol. Now, if you want to carry on drinking, just please don't offer me any. I've got some alcohol-free drinks. I'm good. Don't make it awkward for me, please. Don't invite, people who are really massive drinkers, for goodness sake. And don't pressurize me, because I'm doing this health thing. And by the way, I'll be out on a Monday doing yoga, and I'll be out on a Tuesday night because I've got whatever going on, and I'd love your support. And usually that's it. That takes the pressure off completely. And women always say, oh yeah, well, if I was doing something for my health, my husband would be really supportive. Well, yeah, that's what this is, right? So if you take the emphasis off not drinking and put the emphasis on getting well, then it changes everything. It changes the focus. And you can sit and drink with your partner, because they can have their alcohol if they want it. You can have your alcohol-free drinks. All good.
The social pressure is truly crazy.
Yeah, exactly. And as I just alluded to, because it doesn't make any sense. If you were going to a barbecue and you were vegan, right, you would have fantastic time because they're your friends and they're all eating burgers, and you've got your vegan hot dog or whatever it is you've either taken with you or the host has prepped for you. And does anyone care what you're putting in your mouth? No. And if they did, if someone makes a joke about, oh, why don't you eat meat? Wouldn't bother you in the slightest. You just say, I'm good. Carry on eating your burger. Why would anyone care what you put in your mouth? It's actually bizarre. The problem is with alcohol, of course, it's not really about what you're taking in. It's everything else connected with it. So if you can just make as small a deal of it as possible in the early weeks, maybe later on you might need some deeper conversations, but to start with, I recommend not saying much at all to partners and family and close friends. It's none of their business. You're doing this for your health. Similarly, if you'd had some dental work done, let's say, and it had to be on very strong antibiotics, they would probably say you can't drink alcohol for 3 weeks, because otherwise this will really impact on the medication. You'll be really ill. I mean, you're not just going to never go out or never see a friend or never sit in the kitchen with your partner. I mean, what difference does it make? Right?
I do
what
remember
you're putting in your mouth, it doesn't make any difference. It's that you can still be social. You can still interact. In fact, you can do it with much more clarity.
I think you said this in your book about it's really helpful to have your line together so that before you go to a party, you know what you're going to say when someone offers you a drink.
Absolutely. Yeah. I really recommend that in the early weeks, because you've got enough to focus on without having to worry about everybody else and sober shamers. It's none of their business. But I'd really recommend that you decide what you're going to do before you go out. So let's say you've got a group of friends you're going out with, people who they know you as a drinker, as it were. So if the danger is if you simply rock up to an event, party, or even whatever it is, bar, And then you walk in and someone goes, oh, hi, hey, Monica, you want your usual? Here you go. If you then go, oh, well, actually, it's kind of awkward. I'm kind of not drinking. So no, I won't. Well, I won't. I'm sort of doing in that gap, in that awkward gap, that person will have probably gone, oh, don't be so goddamn ridiculous. Have a drink. Don't be so boring. Have a drink. And before you know it, you feel vulnerable and a little bit awkward. And, you know, the game's up before you start. Whereas if you've prepped ahead, you can let them know in advance that you're not drinking. And there are many different ways to do this. So you can drop them a text or a WhatsApp or however you connect and just say, oh, by the way, just letting you know, I'm not drinking at the moment, but I'm great. We've got some great alcohol-free beer or whatever. So you don't need to worry about me. Really looking forward to seeing you. Or you can give a bit more detail if you want. You can say, just to let you know, I'm not drinking alcohol. If you want to give an excuse, I'm on antibiotics, or I'm, driving, and I'm, or you might want to tell the truth and say, not drinking alcohol at the moment. You know what? Feels so much better. It's amazing. Don't need to worry about me. I've got my alcohol-free drinks. Look forward to seeing you. Right, so you give them the heads up. And then when you arrive and they say, oh, would you like a drink? Answer, I'd love a drink. Thank you. I'll have a kombucha, please. Because why does the word drink have to mean alcohol? It drives me bonkers. Yeah. So it's about the going in with that confidence, even though, of course, of course, you're going to feel a bit wobbly the first time you go out. We do. I can't deny that. The first few times you go out sober, you do feel quite raw. You do feel quite kind of, oh my goodness, who exactly am I here? I don't know what to do with myself. It is odd. I can't pretend it isn't odd, but you get past it. And particularly if you can kind of just remind yourself what you're doing here, why you're doing this. And also, it's quite fun to become a bit of an observer and give yourself the role of a kind of an observer or an anthropologist who's watching the humans in action as they start to get drunk. It's quite something to observe.
I have to confess that the first week I hid.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. It's absolutely fine. Okay. Sometimes people hole up for a month. It's absolutely fine. You do whatever you need to do. Doesn't matter. Nothing wrong with that. Lots of people just go, do you know what? I'm going to go to bed early every night. Fine. It's not a problem. PJs at 5 p.m. and a cocoa and a good book. Great. Doesn't matter.
I did observe a little bit though that it messed with my self-confidence a bit, kind of like I was a little down on myself for having to hide. But it sounds like you think that that's an okay approach, because I know that you also write about kind of like limiting beliefs and self-esteem related to drinking.
Well, it's more of the fact that in almost every case, I don't think I've ever met anyone that this isn't true for. If you're drinking more than you want to regularly, then there is always what underlies that will be some level of lack of self-esteem, lack of self-love. I know it sounds really a bit woo-woo, I suppose, but it's true. If you actually truly loved yourself, if you truly accepted yourself, you wouldn't self-harm. And ultimately, that's what it is.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe we shift the conversation to like cravings and what's going on. And anyone, please ask any questions that you have. There's been a lot of back and forth, which has been wonderful, about experiences. And thank you so much. And we will summarize like the recommendations for alcohol-free drinks, and I'll send out a follow-up email as well. But yeah, if you have any questions, let me know. And Janey, let's talk about cravings.
Yeah, well, the way it works is that in the first sort of, it depends, obviously, how much you've been drinking, but all things being equal, within 3 or 4 days, the alcohol is usually left your system. By 10 days, it's definitely left your system. So when you get these kind of cravings, in the first couple of days, you might get headaches and cravings in inverted commas that feel very physiological, and perhaps they are, in the same way that when you stop sugar, if anyone's ever completely quit sugar, you can get a real kind of headache afterwards, because your body is sort of saying, what the hell, where I need my sugar. So you can actually kind of get a physical kind of craving. And the answer is just ride it, have something else. I'll come back to that in a moment. But after the alcohol has left your body, which for most people, as I say, is within a few days, then cravings, let's be really clear, are just thoughts. I mean, they're very strong, very persistent thoughts, but they're thoughts. A craving is when we look back, and we look back with rose-colored spectacles and we fantasize over how great it would be to have a drink. But it isn't true. And this is where we have to notice our thoughts again. And we have to find other ways to, that expression, surf the urge. And there are so many other ways to do that. So it's about accepting that cravings are just thoughts. The physiological piece, just to be clear, there are lots of things you can do to help with that. I mean, people suggest that a teaspoon of apple cider vinegar is great for reducing cravings. There are certain supplements that can be really beneficial that will help ease the cravings. Selenium is fantastic if you get the right kind. Have a handful of Brazil nuts. There's a few little tips and tricks that will help you in the early weeks. But ultimately, what it will come back to is noticing your thoughts. So when you say cravings, is it that what you're thinking is, oh, I'm at a wedding, everyone's chinking glasses, they've all got champagne, they're all having a lovely time, I'm craving that? And that's when you have to put the pause in and say, so what is it I'm actually craving? Because it isn't actually the toxic liquid, it's the associations. And we have to find another way to get that, as it were, to have that pleasure that we're seeking. We seek pleasure. That's what we do. We're dopamine seekers. And that's fine. We can get dopamine another way.
Okay, so how about, I had grand plans to have a full cleanse this month, like eat really well and not drink and lose a few pounds, and it hasn't happened.
No.
So I haven't lost any weight because I think
good.
I've replaced all of the calories with carbs. So yeah.
So this is where I try and explain to people that this isn't a health trend. It isn't a well-being trend. It's not the same as going and doing a week's juice detox or a week, a month off of dairy or any of the other, well-being things that we can do. They're all fine. And if you want to do that, that's absolutely fine. But don't get confused into thinking that is choosing to be sober and to be alcohol-free, because it isn't. And if you genuinely are, and if you answer that question, could my life be physically and emotionally, could my life be better physically and emotionally without alcohol? If the answer is yes, then you owe it to yourself to sort out that piece and that piece alone first. Okay. And in so doing, you won't lose any weight. I mean, you might tone up slightly, but it's not about losing weight. You cannot do more than one thing at once. And this is the most important piece. So if you're a smoker, if you're taking in a load of sugar, if you're eating a load of crap, of course, I would say, be as healthy as you possibly can be. And I'll move on to that. But it absolutely isn't a time to diet, for example. If I'm working with clients, I will absolutely not allow them to be doing the fasting thing or 16-8 or whatever it is. Absolutely not in the first 4 to 6 weeks. It's really important that you focus only on not drinking and adding in as much good nutrition as you possibly can to support the brain chemistry.
What I've really been trying to incorporate is just, I feel so great about not drinking. And so it's that shift of attitude and languaging around, rather than beating myself up because I might be eating more than I usually do, it's more like, oh, right on. Like, I've gone 23 days now without alcohol. I'm starting to feel great. And more than anything, I'm just proud of myself.
Absolutely. So you should be. Fantastic. That's all that matters.
I really encourage others not to focus on those negative thoughts about, oh God, I'm such a loser because I'm eating so much candy. I mean, maybe replace the candy with, like you said in your book, like replace it with dates or grapes or something like that.
Yeah, dates in the freezer are great. Pop a date in the freezer and it's a bit like a kind of little truffle. But, you know, dark chocolate is good. Nuts are good. Sugar is okay in moderation. In the early weeks, if you find that you want more sugar, just accept that you're going to take in a little more sugar. Don't be ridiculous about it, because that'll be self-harming as well, right? But if you want a piece of cake, have a piece of cake. It's not the end of the world. Just see if you can do some healthy sugar swaps. I've got lots of great suggestions in the book for more healthy ways of doing it. But one little question to ask yourself there is, when you're craving, in inverted commas, you know, that word again, the sugar, ask yourself, what is it that I'm really wanting here? Is it the fuel, you know, the energy that sugar would bring? Or is it the sweetness? Is it that I want sweetness in my life? If you see what I mean? Because sometimes it's not that we actually want sugar at all. It's that what we really want is to go to bed early, or a hug, or, you know, another way of getting sweetness in our life. So we really do have to notice what's going on rather than mindlessly reaching for another bag of Haribos or whatever.
I love that, the idea of a hug being the sweetness that you want.
Yeah.
We had a question in the audience about liking the taste of alcohol. And Sylvia, there are great brands out there that actually replace the alcohol. And Libby, thank you for joining us. And Libby, if you don't mind putting a link into your blog, you have a beautiful piece that came out the other day, and I would love for you to share it with the group. But Ritual is a brand that she mentions in the chat about that replaces alcohol. So it's like, I think they have a tequila and a gin and a few others. So that is a great brand.
Yeah, there are some amazing brands. One brand is called Lyres. I'm sure you have them in the States, Lyres. They're a global brand now. Absolutely fantastic brand. They've got 13 different spirit, in inverted commas, alternatives that are alcohol free. They're super good. You know, you can literally find anything that you want. Just back on that comment you made about liking the taste of alcohol. Alcohol itself tastes terrible. Nobody likes the taste of alcohol because, you know, if you remember back to when you were a child or a teenager and you first tried your first sip of alcohol, you'd like be coughing and spluttering. It's disgusting. It's just we get used to it. We don't like the taste of alcohol. We like everything that's added in with it, effectively. So when you get the hang of alcohol-free drinks and you realize that the alcohol-free drinks are not trying to be a replacement, then you change your mindset. You realize that what you're looking for is an adult, nice, decent drink. We don't want, you know, Coca-Cola and warm orange juice. We're not 12, are we? You know, we want a proper grown-up, not too sweet, alcohol-free drink, right? But the choices are amazing. I mean, there's so many amazing kombuchas and artisan tonics. If you don't want to have a, in inverted commas, replacement, there are just so many amazing drinks available now that, you know, everyone can find something that they like.
I was intrigued by, I just got this yesterday. It's called Jang. And it has CBD in it.
Yeah, there's quite a few CBD infused drinks. I've seen a few of those now.
And so that's not, correct me if I'm wrong, but CBD does not make you high. It's the THC. So this is
exactly.
Like, they advertise it kind of as a mood altering drink.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I mean, I you know, there's lots of those in the UK as well. There's a whole bunch of the CBD type drinks. Functional drinks, you know, as they're called. I think it's each to their own, really. I haven't personally found any that I haven't necessarily noticed anything if I've tried them. You know, I don't want to feel like I need anything else, you know,
like replacing one for the other.
Yeah, I mean, I'm good with I don't need I mean, if the whole conversation about CBD is completely different, of course, and perhaps if I was in serious pain, I may well be considering CBD oil or whatever, but that's completely different to needing it in a drink. I think that most of us, when we want the associations that an alcoholic drink brings with it. we're not taking an alcoholic drink for its effects, in inverted commas. I mean, we are when we're drinking, as it were, but once we've got past that, we need to look at, I have a course called Get the Buzz Without the Booze, right? We can, we want that buzz, don't we? And we find ways of getting that buzz that does not involve what we put in our mouth. It's perfectly possible. There are many ways of getting that buzz.
We have a question about naltrexone. I could be mispronouncing that, but what are your thoughts about it?
I'm not familiar with it, but I'm guessing that it's one of the drugs that, am I right in thinking it's one of the drugs that you take to stop you wanting alcohol? I think it's that one, is it? I could be, so. I could be wrong. If it's the drug that you take so that it stops your appetite for alcohol, as it were, there are various different versions of that. I don't have any personal experience of it, but here's what I have discovered. A colleague of mine was very much grey area drinker, not clinically dependent, grey area drinker, and tried one of these drugs, a similar one, spent quite a lot of money on it. I think it was quite expensive kind of program, and found that it worked really well. So he didn't have any, don't have any cravings, didn't, it was absolutely fine, because the drug had blocked that desire, in inverted commas. So, if he thought about it, the desire wasn't there, and he knew that it would make him ill, or however it works. And then I bumped into him something like 9 months, 10 months later, and I said, are you all good now then? You all, are you free from the alcohol trap? And he said, well, I still take the drug because I need to be sure. And I thought, right, okay. So you literally are addicted to something else. Haven't actually changed your mindset. You're relying on something else to do it for you. So that would be my take on it. Yeah,
that's a pretty good distinction.
I mean, as with so many things, it's whatever works for you, isn't it? And if for some people, if that can kickstart them, there are so many different ways of doing this that I wouldn't say any way is wrong, but all I would like to do is sow the seed to everybody that unless you are if you're clinically dependent and you can't function, if you can't go about your day in any, if you have no enjoyment in your life and you don't work or get out or do anything without drinking, then you're clinically dependent. Then I'm not talking to you. Then it's really dangerous to stop. Then you really need help. Okay. Yeah. And that distinction has to be made.
Yeah.
If you are a grey area drinker, then you can stop. You absolutely can stop, but you've got to support yourself both physically and emotionally.
Yeah. We don't have that much time left, but I do love this question. And so I'm just going to read it. How can we broach this subject to our adult kids who could benefit greatly from this adventure? She's afraid that she'll appear judgmental and put them on the defensive. And so like maybe sharing this presentation or casually mentioning, do you have any words of wisdom around how to do this without judgment and encouraging those you love?
Yeah, I mean, I think absolutely, without any shadow of a doubt, the best thing you can possibly do is model the behavior you want to see. Right. So that's my biggest regret, is that I didn't do this sooner. I've got 4 kids, and, certainly 3 of them, the behavior I modeled is not what I want for them. And I hate that. Right. But now it's different. So I'm not judgmental with them at all, but they can see how I've changed, and definitely it rubs off. There's no doubt about it. You can just open up conversation, tell them how great you feel. You don't have to tell them what they can or can't do, but you can tell them how much better you feel. You can tell them that you wished you'd done this sooner. You can tell them that you missed God knows how many really important things in your life because you were hungover. You can tell them about really awful text messages you sent you wish you hadn't because you were drunk. You can tell them, why would you waste your money on this stuff? You can do this stuff without being judgmental, mostly just by focusing on yourself. And, it will rub off. We can't tell them what to do. They've got to have their own path. But fortunately, certainly in the UK, huge bunch of millennials are not drinking the way we used to at all. They're much brighter. They recognize the importance of good mental health and well-being, and just how ridiculously expensive alcohol is anyway, and what nonsense it is. So a huge percentage of young people in the UK are actually being quite bright and choosing not to drink.
It's pretty exciting to see that this is becoming a trend. There's someone in the audience who has participated with AA. There was another question about it, and I know that you have your own, the Sober Club. Do you want to comment on the resources that are out there for people who want support?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think, as I say, there are so many ways of doing this, and AA works for some people. In the UK, we have Smart Recovery. There are so many different things on offer. My approach is positive sobriety. So my approach is connecting together people who want to focus on living their best life without the booze. So it's not only about stopping drinking. It's very much about, well, that's the foundational piece. Now let's look at everything else. How do we eat well? How do we live our best lives? How do we focus on spirituality and exercise and living our purpose and living our dream and everything else? So, my community is very much about focusing on the positive and living your best life. So that's the soberclub.com. And we have an online community. We have a private group, and we have a course as part of it, regular meetings online and that kind of stuff. And I also do retreats and things in the UK. But ultimately, it doesn't really matter how you get to do this. What matters is do it and then continue, because it's just the foundational piece. It's the most important piece, but it's just the foundation. Then you've got to put the work in after that. Because if you don't, it'll slip back.
Love the way that you end your book with the chapter on sober mind, sober heart, body, soul, and lifestyle. I love your approach about bringing the positivity to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, the concept of remaining in the trap, that doesn't work for me. I don't want to constantly go round the block on kind of hanging on to what's gone before. I personally think that we can be free from the alcohol trap, and we can focus on living our best lives. Those of us who are grey area drinkers or were grey area drinkers. So I think the missing piece for me was that nobody told me how fantastic life can be without the booze. If I went to the GP or I went to a therapist and I was kind of brave enough to bring it up, well, number one, they'd usually say, well, you seem fine. Because they're probably drinking too. So number one, they just say, well, you seem fine. Have an alcohol-free day. Yeah. Like I hadn't thought of that. And then maybe they'd say, oh, well, seriously, just have a week off, or have a glass of water in between, and just or I remember one doctor saying to me, switch the wine for vodka, because it's got a few less calories, it's a bit better for you. And people come out with nonsense like that. Actually, what I needed was for people to say to me, wow, well done you've kind of woken up, that's fantastic. You've got so much to look forward to. Life is so much better in every way without booze. Now let me signpost you to the Sober Club or wherever, another meeting or whatever. That's what they need to be saying. But we don't say that. We just go, oh dear, poor you. Well, you better grit your teeth and see if we, everyone else can drink. Lucky them. But poor you, you can't drink. Nonsense. We're the lucky ones. We are 100% the lucky ones.
Love that. Thank you, Janey. It's been such a joy to talk to you, and I am so inspired, and I'm sure our audience is too. We will be doing Dry January. If anyone
well, you'll still be sober, right? There's my challenge to you. You'll be celebrating your, what will it be? 5th month. Yeah. Invite me back.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to. So Janey, thank you so much. I do want to mention a couple of upcoming things.